Hi everybody, welcome to Essential Oil Mother webinars. I'm Janet Fullmer, I'll be your host today, and today we're going to talk about the top 10 oils no family should be without in the Family Physician's Kit. Today I would like to talk about 4 topics that I feel are really important about essential oils, and then we will go over the top 10 oils no family should be without. The first topic I'd like to talk about is why our family chose to use essential oils, particularly doTERRA essential oils. I feel it's important to share our family story. The second thing we'll talk about is why I chose doTERRA over other brands of essential oils. Third, I'd like to talk about what an essential oil is, how we use it, which ways we can use it, and how it works in the body. Fourth, I'd like to go over the top 10 oils and talk about how we use them, how we can protect our children from colds and flu and help build their immune systems to guard them against a lot of the viruses and colds going around and many other challenges that our children and our families face every day. So with that, I'll start with the first topic. Okay, first of all, I'd like to talk to you about our family story and why we started using doTERRA essential oils. I had a good friend who had a son with Hunter's syndrome, and he had a very poor immune system and was constantly getting pneumonia and lots of illnesses. And at about that time when they started using essential oils, she found out that my second daughter, here's a picture of our family, my second daughter had been in the hospital for 3 months with an eating disorder and a multitude of other issues. And she said, you know, you really ought to look into essential oils. And I love natural remedies. I've not been a huge fan of them because with serious issues like eating disorders and depression, I hadn't found very much success with them. But because she was my friend and because I loved her and I trusted her, I chose to find out more about them. And I'm so glad I did. So I took my daughter, who had just gotten out of the hospital, and we went down and spoke to her about the oils. And she began to explain to us how to use them and how they had helped her son. And my daughter just had this big look of gleam in her eyes and said, Mom, I really, really want to try these. I'm on a lot of prescriptions. I feel like there's another way to help my body heal. And so we bought a kit and she started using the oils faithfully. Within 3 or 4 months of that, along with good emotional release therapy, she began to heal and was able to get off all of her prescriptions and started to thrive. At that time, after Alexis, my daughter, started using them faithfully and began healing both emotionally and physically, I started using them. I had a terrible sore throat, and my sister said, here, swallow a couple of drops of this Onguard oil, and within 20 seconds the pain in my throat had disappeared. And I said, that works faster than Tylenol. So I had to take a second look, and so that's when we started using them as a family. Now I'd like to talk about why we chose to use doTERRA brand essential oils versus many of the other essential oils on the market and in health food stores. I have 2 or 3 friends that I respect very highly. One was a therapist, an emotional release facilitator, and did all forms of therapy that helped some of my children, and he shared with us his experience of using every brand of essential oil on the market, how he used them with himself, his family, and how he used them with his clients. And he said, I began to notice that the degree of healing in the doTERRA clients was so much greater than the other essential oils that I began to only use doTERRA. So that was the first reason I looked at doTERRA versus all the other essential oil brands. I also have a person that I know really well down at an herb shop here in Pleasant Grove, from just a few miles from my home, who has a degree in herbology and many natural health certificates. And she told me the same thing. She had used all 8 or 9 essential oil brands on the market and threw them out, literally threw them all away when doTERRA came around. She said that the results that she saw in her clients were night and day. And that was very profound for me because I respected her and her knowledge about natural health and the success she had with healing other clients. The third reason I chose to do doTERRA, of course, my friend got me in, but I also found out that there were several doctors and medical facilities, not only in our area, but throughout the United States, that had begun to use essential oils in their practice. One was Dr. Stoyer, who used it in his oral surgery practice. Paul Winterton, who's an orthopedic surgeon in Salt Lake, who uses essential oils with all his surgery patients and clients that come in with knees and shoulders and back problems. And that really caught my attention. And with that knowledge, I said, I must take a look. And I have to say that the fourth reason we chose to use doTERRA was the success we started having as a family. So that's why we chose to use doTERRA. Next, I'd like to talk to you about what an essential oil is. Many people ask me, what is an essential oil, and what's the difference between an essential oil and an herb? And from what I've learned, I'd like to share with you. An essential oil is an extract from a plant or a fruit or a stem or a bark from a tree. It's like the lifeblood of a plant that we kind of squeeze out and put into a little bottle. The difference between an herb and an essential oil is an herb comes from a dead plant that it's dried out, we take the leaves, we crush them up, we put them in a capsule, and there's many therapeutic properties with herbs. An essential oil comes from a living plant that we distill. There's little tiny oil sacs on plants. The picture you see here is an oil sac on a peppermint plant. And so many plants, not every plant, but many plants have these little oil sacs, and they're full of therapeutic properties. And in their pure concentrated form, we can use them therapeutically for many health issues. I love the way doTERRA certifies their oils. They take their oils to a third-party certification. They distill them properly at just the right temperature, and they have third-party testing that makes sure they're absolutely pure. If an essential oil is pure, then we know that we can take it internally for the most part. Many essential oils on the market, on their labels, say do not ingest, which tells me that there is fillers in them. There are fillers in them, and so we need to be very careful about what we ingest. But because doTERRA oils are very pure, we can ingest them. We also need to know that essential oils from doTERRA have been known to be 50 to 70 times more powerful than an herb. In other words, they're very concentrated, so 1 or 2 drops goes a long way. It's been said that 1 drop of peppermint oil equals 28 cups of peppermint tea. So when you think of 1 drop of peppermint oil, that can go a long way. That's why we don't use a lot of drops. We're very careful about how much we use because 1 drop is very therapeutic. So they're very concentrated. Another thing or another topic that is very important to understand is oils can be used to help kill viruses. Now, when a person has a strep throat or a bacteria, a doctor will prescribe an antibiotic. And the reason why antibiotics work is because bacteria lies outside the cell wall, where viruses lie inside the cell wall. And that's why when we go to a doctor and the doctor says, well, it looks like it's a virus, there's not much I can do for you, just wait it out, because an antibiotic cannot penetrate through the cell wall. But an essential oil, a pure essential oil, can penetrate through the cell wall, and many essential oils are antiviral, which means they can kill viruses. I'll never forget the story that a friend of mine told me. She knew of the Provo High School football team all broke out in the swine flu. And the swine flu was a virus, a very difficult virus. And 3 of the mothers of the football players used doTERRA. And they immediately started using doTERRA on their sons. And within 3 days, the swine flu was over. And the rest of the team who had the swine flu took 2 weeks to get better. So we know essential oils can speed up the healing of a virus in a very powerful way. The other thing about an essential oil that we need to understand is it's very cost effective. Many people think, well, gee, that must be expensive. But in reality, it's very inexpensive because we only use a drop or two with each application. For example, for a fever, if a child has a fever, we may put a drop or two down the back of the neck or down the spine to cool a fever, and it may take 5 or 10 minutes to relieve that fever. Whereas something over the counter that we might buy from the store, and that's 30, let's say, a drop or two of peppermint oil may only be 33 cents an application, whereas some over-the-counter medication might be 50 or 60 cents an application and may take 30 minutes to work. So they're very cost-effective. My favorite cost-effective story is for an ear infection. When our son or daughter or ourselves has an ear infection, we have to go to the doctor. We get prescribed an antibiotic, so there's a co-payment for a doctor visit, and then we have to pay a co-payment or the price of an antibiotic, and then it takes 5 to 10 days to get better from an ear infection. Whereas with an essential oil used correctly, we can put, for example, Melaleuca or basil or lavender around the outside of an ear every 2 to 4 hours, a drop or two. It may only cost us $1.50, and the ear infection may be over within 24 hours. So they're very cost effective. One more important point that I need to point out about essential oils is if they're pure, and doTERRA has a trademark on their oil called CPTG, Certified Pure Therapeutic Grade Oils. If the oils are pure, there is no expiration date on the oil bottle. And that's because if they're stored in a dark bottle and kept out of really, really strong heat, they will last indefinitely. And that's very powerful for us as families and mothers who want to have things on hand in case of an emergency. If there was a flood or an earthquake, we would have something, we can put them on our shelves or in our emergency supply and have something that we can use if we were never able to make it to a medical facility. So other than the citrus oils that only have a shelf life of about 5 years, all the other essential oils. Okay, so how do we use essential oils? There are 3 ways to use them. One is aromatically, and aromatically we can use through a diffuser. We can put, such as the ones you see here, we pour a few drops of oil and some water and put them in a diffuser, and they can diffuse in the air, in our homes, in our bedrooms, when our children have a cold or congestion or sinus or respiratory issues. They can clean the air and open up the airways so that they can breathe easier. I'll never forget the time my son had a cold and could not breathe, and I remember putting the essential oil Breathe into his diffuser, and within 10 minutes, you know, when he first went to sleep, he was breathing really heavy and congested. Within 10 minutes, his breathing was easier, and he slept all night peacefully and woke up without that congestion. So diffusion is very powerful. Diffusion is also very powerful for killing the pathogens in the air. We know that during the school year, our kids will have been exposed to all kinds of viruses at school, and when they come home, they'll cough, and all kinds of pathogens will be in the air. And so when we diffuse, we kill pathogens in the air. I have to relate a story of when our home caught on fire. It wasn't a very pleasant experience. Our home was filled with smoke, and one of the things that we were really concerned about was that the firefighter said you can't sleep in your home, the smoke is dangerous to your lungs, and you probably need to go somewhere for a few days. Well, we didn't really want to go anywhere. This is where we lived, and only one section of our home was on fire, yet smoke filled the house. So we decided to try diffusion, and we got the essential oil Purify and started diffusing throughout our home. And literally, it took that burnt smell and smoke out of everything. We put the diffuser and let it run in the kitchen, then we put it in our bedrooms and in the living room and let it run a cycle, and we literally saw it take the smoke, well, not saw, but noticed that it took the smoke smell out of the walls, out of our clothes. We just couldn't believe it. So diffusion is very powerful. The third reason why diffusion is another powerful way to use the oils is for mood disorders, such as depression and anxiety. I have my third daughter who suffers from severe anxiety and panic disorder. Got married and was pregnant, and the doctor said, you can't take your medicine anymore because it's not safe for the fetus. And so she went off her medicine and her anxiety began to escalate. And when it got so bad that we didn't know what we were going to be able to do to help her, I had just learned about diffusion and how the olfactory nerve in the nose is directly connected to the part of the brain called the amygdala. Now in the amygdala, you'll see a picture here of the amygdala. It's a very tiny spot in the brain, but it's where it stores our trauma, it's where we make our judgments, our reasons, it controls our fight and flight syndrome. And I went to a class that talked about this, and I thought, I've got to get my daughter a diffuser. So we bought one, and we poured the essential oil bergamot into the diffuser and started diffusing it into her living room and kitchen where she was working with her family. And within 20 minutes, her anxiety and her panic would level out. And so she did this 2 or 3 times a day, and it carried her through her entire pregnancy. So diffusion has powerful benefits to the brain, the respiratory system, and to our environment. It kills pathogens in the air. Okay, the second way we use essential oils is topically. One of my favorite ways to use essential oils. You'll see here in this picture, you'll see little feet. And that's because the feet have the largest pores in the body. So if we put the essential oils on the reflex parts of the feet, you'll see here on this reflex chart, they penetrate through the skin within about 20 seconds and hit every organ, hit the bloodstream and hit every organ in the body within 20 to 30 minutes. Now that's powerful. And when you have a young child or someone who cannot swallow medication, essential oils become a very powerful way to get therapeutic properties into them. For example, when my little granddaughter was born, she had digestive issues. She had colic, severe colic, and so we would use Digestion essential oil for the tummy and rub it on her tummy. She didn't have to swallow it, but we would just rub a drop or two around her tummy, and it would calm her tummy down and relax her tummy. So it gets into the bloodstream very quickly. The other way we use it is internally. So if you see here in this picture a woman swallowing a glass of water with essential oils. One of my favorite stories about using the oils internally is from my friend Stephanie Tasso, who suffers with hay fever. And so she decided to do some research on which essential oils would help her, and she read that Melaleuca was an excellent oil for hay fever. So she began to pour 3 or 4 drops of Melaleuca into her water 3 or 4 times a day. And she told me she did this for a couple of days, and then the 3rd day she just did it once. The 4th day she did it once, and her hay fever was completely wiped out for the season. Now normally hay fever lasts 3 or 4 weeks depending on the season, and she says it totally shuts her down, and it's very hard for her. She's a runner, she likes to go outside and run, and she was so impressed that she could be over her hay fever in 3 or 4 days and have a wonderful allergy season relief in her life that she swears by Melaleuca for hay fever. So you can take it internally too, so it's very safe. Okay, now I'd like to talk about the top 10 oils I feel no family should be without, and the reason why is because most of these oils cover most of the illnesses and the colds and viruses that we get on a yearly basis with our families. And my goal as an essential oil mother is to empower you with information and knowledge and teach you how to use the oils so that you can use them with your families and enjoy the success that we have had as a family. So I'd first like to start with lavender. Now lavender is a wonderful oil, very popular oil. We hear about it. Many people use a synthetic form of lavender in their perfumes and soaps. It's not the pure lavender, but doTERRA has the pure lavender oil. They distill it from the lavender farms in France. And one thing that's very important to know about doTERRA is that they only harvest their oils from the country where the plant grows indigenously. In other words, they don't grow their own plants and trees to distill their oils. They only harvest them from the countries where they grow naturally and where their properties are the most therapeutic. So that's important to know. So lavender has many common uses that we use. It's wonderful for anxiety, it's wonderful for insomnia, It's wonderful for cuts and burns. Excellent for burns. My nephew the other day had a very bad chemical burn, and we poured lavender on it, and within 24 hours that burn had subsided and shrunk to by 75%. And so it's excellent for healing burns. Many people use lavender. They put it on the back of their neck or on their wrists, 3 or 4 drops to calm their anxiety, or if they're nervous and they just need to feel calm in a situation like a test or a stressful situation. One of the things that my good neighbor Laura uses lavender for is for insomnia. Now, she's the type of person, for most of her life, she would not go to bed till 3 or 4 in the morning. Her mind just could not stop racing. She couldn't sleep. And so when she came to one of our classes and heard about lavender, she tried it. So she'd put 3 or 4 drops on her hands and rub it on the back of her spine and the back of her neck. And she called me up a few days later and said, I can't even make it through the 10 o'clock news. I am out by 10:30 and I sleep great all night. So lavender is a wonderful oil for sleep. I highly recommend it. But the next oil I'd like to talk about is lemon. Lemon is a marvelous disinfectant. Lemon, if you diffuse it, kills pathogens in the air. It's antidepressive, it's uplifting and inspiring. It's pleasant to smell, the pure lemon. It's also very, very good for putting the body in an alkaline state. When the body gets too acidic, we become more susceptible to illness. And so lemon water is putting a drop or 2 of lemon in our water every day, puts our body in that natural alkaline state that makes us more resistant to disease. In fact, my sister, who teaches school, said that she started doing that every day, and as a school teacher, you're around all kinds of viruses. And she said it really, really helped lessen the amount of illnesses that she got throughout the year when she started using lemon. So lemon is a wonderful remedy for that. It's excellent for cleansing the kidneys and gout, and also for allergies. And I'll talk more about that later. The next essential oil I'd like to talk about is peppermint. Peppermint is a wonderful smell. There's so many wonderful uses to peppermint. Peppermint is a digestive aid. If you put a couple of drops in water, it will calm your tummy. I know a lot of people who rub it on the tops of their heads or the back of their neck for fever or headaches or menstrual cramps. They rub it right on their lower abdomen for menstrual cramps, and it does a wonderful job of relieving pain. Peppermint is also used to oxygenate the brain. Many families diffuse it when their kids are studying because it oxygenates the brain and helps them to focus. One of my favorite stories of peppermint, in fact, I just heard it a couple of days ago from a good friend of mine whose daughter was out in the sun 2 days in a row and started getting heat exhaustion. She started just getting fatigued, and they could not get her body temperature down. She didn't necessarily have a sunburn, but she had been out in the sun so much she was really suffering. And they were on a family vacation and ready to take her home, and because they couldn't get her better. It had been 18 hours and that heat was not going away. So she remembered hearing about peppermint and decided to apply it on the spine, right down the spine, 5 or 6 drops down her spine. And her daughter had been laying in bed most of the day with heat exhaustion. And she said about 20 minutes later, her daughter woke up, came down the stairs and says, I feel better. And so peppermint is wonderful for relieving fevers and heat exhaustion. And the other thing that peppermint is excellent for is that we like to layer peppermint topically. If we use an essential oil on a muscle such as deep blue or marjoram or basil to relax a tense muscle, if you put a drop or 2 of peppermint on top of it, it will drive the oil deeper into the muscle tissue, and you'll have 30% more efficacy of pain relief, more pain relief if you use peppermint on top of another oil. So peppermint's wonderful. Now, the reason why I spoke about lavender, lemon, and peppermint in the beginning of the top 10 oil list is because all 3 of these combined make great allergy relief. In addition to Melaleuca, which I spoke about for hay fever, many people use a couple of drops of lavender, lemon, and peppermint in a capsule, under their nose, under their tongue, or diffuse it in the air for allergy relief. I have a neighbor down the street, Katie Bush, who is very allergic to animals, and when she goes into the home of her mother-in-law who has dogs and cats, she takes her oils with her and drops a couple of drops under her tongue and gets great allergy relief. Within 2 or 3 minutes, the itching and the sneezing goes completely away. Because lavender is a natural antihistamine, and peppermint's a natural decongestant, and lemon is just a natural cleanser. So with the 3 combined, you get great allergy relief. Okay, the next oil I'd like to talk about is Melaleuca. Now, Melaleuca is an amazing oil. It's antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, excellent for insect bites and eczema or any skin condition. So Melaleuca, one of the common ways we use it in our family is for ear infections. If anyone gets an ear infection, now you must remember we never put oils inside the ear. We always go around the ear, and I'll give you a link to a video clip on how to do that at the end of this presentation so that you can actually see it. But we take a drop or 2 of the oil and put it around the ear bone, never inside the ear. And if you do, I noticed with my neighbor whose son had an ear infection, they had no insurance, so she called and said, "Is there anything I can do?" She had one of those little scopes that she looked into her son's ear and noticed that it was bulging red, and she said, "Should I take him to the doctor?" And I said, "Well, I can't tell you whether to take him to the doctor or not. That's your choice. But I can tell you that we've used Melaleuca in our family, and it's really helped us." So I told her to take a couple of drops and put it around the ear, the back side, behind the bone behind the ear and the front of the ear, and do that every 2 hours for a day and see if that would help relieve her son's ear infection. And she called me the next day and said it was gone. And so she was thrilled that she didn't have to spend that $100 to go to a doctor and get some medication. So excellent. For sinus infections, you can swallow it or you can rub it right around the sinus cavities, over the nose, under the cheek, and over the forehead. And the more often you do it, the better. We like to use 2 to 4 drops for an adult, 2 drops for children, and not more than a drop for babies. So that's the general protocol for oils, is what we usually suggest. Melaleuca is my favorite for cold sores. If I notice a cold sore coming on, I immediately start putting a drop or 2 of Melaleuca every 2 hours on my lip. And this happened to me 2 days ago. I felt one coming on and I was just devastated. So I hurried and started putting Melaleuca even before the blister started forming. And within 24 hours, that pain was gone, and it never manifested itself. It was gone. And as you know, any of you know that have cold sores they can last for 10 to 20 days. They can inflame your lip. You can have blisters and bleeding, and I just didn't even have any of that this time around, so I was really grateful for Melaleuca. Many, many uses for Melaleuca. I'll leave you a link. You can learn more about Melaleuca if you click this link. Okay, oregano, another awesome oil, but we have a safety precaution with oregano. It's a very hot oil, so if you need to use it topically, you need to use a carrier oil, such as olive oil, or what we carry at doTERRA is fractionated coconut oil, and we use this fractionated coconut oil versus a regular coconut oil because it's full of antioxidants, and when it's fractionated, it's broken down a little bit so it absorbs into the skin very quickly. You'll notice when you put oils on the skin, they absorb into the skin very quickly and don't leave a greasy feeling. Within 20 or 30 seconds, there's no more residue on the skin. It's absorbed right into the skin. But with oregano, you have to be very careful topically. It's a very powerful oil. Can kill warts. If you put a drop or 2 on a wart twice a day for 10 days, your wart will disappear. I can't guarantee it, but I've heard 100 stories that say that's true. So it's very antiviral, antifungal, excellent for MRSA infections. As you know, MRSA infections are also they're antibiotic resistant. So oregano has been known to kill MRSA. My sister told me about a hospital in Colorado who broke out, their emergency room broke out in MRSA, and they had to shut the emergency room down. But what they did do is they got several diffusers and poured oregano in the diffusers and diffused it. and completely wiped out their MRSA in every part of that emergency room within a week or two. And so that's very powerful. There's been lots of studies on antibacterial effects from oregano. We also call oregano flu shot in a bottle. Put a few drops in water, swallow it. It's excellent for killing the flu and shortening the length of time for flu. The next oil I need to talk about is Onguard. And this is probably one of doTERRA's most popular oil blends. It's a blend has cinnamon, clove, wild orange, eucalyptus, rosemary, and a few other things in it, and it's a very powerful essential oil blend. They've done many studies at University of Utah on Onguard where they have put viruses and bacteria in petri dishes, and it's amazing within 24 to 48 hours how a drop or two of Onguard has killed those viruses and bacteria. It's a powerful preventer. I use this with my children before they go to school a couple of times a week. I'll rub it on their feet, or I'll rub it, we'll put a drop on their toothbrush so it cleans the bacteria in their mouth, it gets into their body, kills viruses and flu, and excellent for numbing sore throat pain. In fact, the very first experience I had with Onguard was I had a sore throat, and my sister said, "Here, put 4 drops of Onguard in a capsule and swallow it and gargle with it." And I did, and within 20 or 30 seconds that pain was relieved. And I wasn't completely better from my cold, but I didn't have the pain, and I thought to myself, wow, that works faster than Tylenol. So it's a pain reliever for any kind of oral, tooth or gum pain because of the clove inside of it that is very anti-pain, analgesic type. So Onguard is a wonderful remedy. The next oil I'd like to talk about is Deep Blue. Dr. Paul Winterton, who's an orthopedic in Salt Lake, talks about, he gives lectures every year in Salt Lake about how he uses Deep Blue with his patients. And Deep Blue is a blend of 4 or 5 different oils: wintergreen, peppermint, helichrysum, and a few others that heal tissues and relieve pain on a very deep joint, deep in joints and deep muscle tissue. I can honestly say that it's been a powerful pain reliever for shoulders, for my husband's shoulder. He was in an accident. Powerful pain reliever for me. I have back issues. I've had 2 back surgeries, and I love the therapeutic properties of Deep Blue. Excellent for inflammation, arthritis, tendinitis. You can put it on topically. They carry it in a rub or in a bottle. And so the best way to use it is topically. Just rub it right on the joint. Okay, the next oil I'd like to talk about is Breathe, an essential oil blend designed to clear respiratory and issues like asthma and congestion and coughing. Breathe is an essential oil that is made up of 4 or 5 different oils: Melaleuca, peppermint, eucalyptus, and a few others that open up the air passages in the nasal cavities. Love it when our kids get sick. We love Breathe. In fact, one of my favorite remedies, my essential oil mother remedies, is that when I hear my kids start to cough or the slightest runny nose, immediately I'll act immediately, because if you use the oils quickly and right when you notice the first sign of a virus or a cold coming on, your chances of eliminating it within a day or 2 is almost 95%. So one of my favorite remedies to use is a couple of drops of Melaleuca right on the lungs, and then followed by a couple of drops of Breathe. It opens up the airways. Melaleuca is a natural expectorant, so it's anti-cough. We can stop the coughing, and it opens up the airways. It helps clear the congestion in the nose, and we do that periodically, either in a diffuser or we just apply it right on the lungs. My little granddaughter who gets a cough, and I get worried about her, and she's so little. Her little nose is so tiny, and congestion just makes it so hard for her to breathe. So we use that remedy with her at the first sign of a runny nose or a stuffy nose. And then we put a drop of Onguard on her feet, and we do that 3 or 4 times, and within a day her colds are gone. The colds never last. they never last a week to 10 days like a normal cold. So they're wonderful. The next oil I would like to talk about is Digestion. It's an essential oil blend with oils like fennel, peppermint, ginger, other oils that are excellent for the tummy. My favorite of all-time stories with Digestion is a neighbor of mine who came to one of my classes. She said her little girl who has Down syndrome was also diagnosed with leukemia and had chronic ear infections. After they did 6 months of chemotherapy and wiped out the leukemia, her immune system was shot. And because of that, she was on constant antibiotics for ear infections and other physical illnesses that she was picking up right and left. And because of the diarrhea, her stomach was bloating and she was miserable and cranky all the time. And they had gone to the doctor and gotten lots of probiotics and tried so many things to clear up her diarrhea and just couldn't do it. So when they came to class and learned about the Digestion, they started to use it on their little girl, and they rubbed a couple of drops on her tummy in a circular motion in the morning, and then they did it again at night. And by the next day, the diarrhea, the bloating was gone for good. It never came back. And she called me up and told me that story a couple of weeks later, and I was just so thrilled for her. She said it had been a nightmare for their family. Their little girl was constantly irritable. And I'm so grateful that they were so grateful they had found something to help her that worked. And it works fast. Digestion is a wonderful remedy for nausea, any digestive issue, irritable bowel, diarrhea, constipation. It works hard to neutralize the chemicals in the stomach and all the little juices that are going on, and help the digestive system to work properly. The last oil I'd like to talk about in my top 10 list is frankincense, and it is my all-time favorite oil because it's a universal oil. It has so many therapeutic properties for so many things. I love how it is antidepressive, anti-headache. It's a pain reliever. Many people that I know that have arthritis will put 3 drops under their tongue a couple of times a day. For me, I like to rub it on my back, my sore back, 3 or 4 drops, followed by some deep blue. So frankincense is a wonderful remedy for pain. I'd like to share with you a link where you can look up a story about a little girl who was plagued with seizures, a terrible seizure disorder. And for months she was in and out of the hospital with her parents and on the highest doses of medicine they could find to try to control those seizures. And how a few drops of frankincense on her feet every day completely wiped out that seizure disorder. It's a wonderful video. I'll put the link to that video here on this webinar, and you can find it. Frankincense is also anti-tumor and anti-cancer. So many people who have had cancer have found a lot of success with frankincense, along with a few other oils. And if you are interested in learning more about cancer research and essential oils, I'll also leave you a link where you can study about cancer and the research that they are finding with essential oils. I read a government study where they used frankincense with 21 patients who had bladder cancer, and all 21 patients recovered with just frankincense. And that's a government study on PubMed.com. And so if you have any questions, make sure you email me. I'm happy to send you everything I can find or can help you with as a family. Any questions, in fact, my email, I need to leave you my email. It's doTERRAmother@gmail.com. Feel free to email me any questions, or if you'd like to learn more about it, I would be happy to share with you. Which leads me to the last part of my presentation. If you have interest in purchasing these oils or learning more about them, you can go to my website, essentialoilmother.com. You can click shop. You can click, there's 3 ways that people buy essential oils. There's, you can buy them retail. If you want to buy one oil at a time retail, I suggest is the best way to do it. If you're interested in getting a wholesale membership, similar to a Costco membership, then I recommend that you get a wholesale membership. They're $35, but after that you get all the oils at wholesale, and it saves you about 25%. So if you're going to buy 1 or 2 or more oils, I really suggest that you get a wholesale membership, because it will save you a lot of money in the long run. And here's a link to that. Again, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to help you. If you came across this video and someone else referred you to doTERRA, and feel free to enroll with them or talk to them about how to enroll. If you don't have anybody that can help you, I would be happy to help you, and I would be happy to put you on my newsletter list and give you any information that I can. So, okay, thanks everybody for joining the Essential Oil Mother webinar. I'm the doTERRA Mother, Janet Fullmer, and I invite you to join our team. Participate with us and empower your family with health options. Learn all you can on how to treat yourselves and your families, and learn about the safe, therapeutic, and effective ways of using essential oils. Thank you for coming.